Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I am talking to a COO and head of brand. Yes, that's one person. Usually, those are two very separate sides of the spectrum when building a business. But Kate Reeder, she does both. She is the COO and head of brand of United Sodas. I'm sure you've seen their super colorful packaging in the coolest shops around town. I just saw them in Pop Up Grocer in New York City. So, Kate, I am so excited to talk shop with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here and can't wait to talk about all things soda and CPG.
Perfect. So, before we dive into that, I would love to hear your career background because, again, I'm just so fascinated with you being COO and head of brand. So, could you give us a little behind the scenes of your own career path?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Most people would say that those tap into two different sides of your brain, left side and right side, so they don't often
Yeah.
go together. For people who don't know, COO, I think a lot of people often think of it as operations in terms of production and supply chain. But in my case, it does include that as a portion, but it's really company operations. How do you manage the day to day team and execute along to the vision that the founders and CEO and leadership has outlined? Head of brand is, of course, developing more of that consumer relationship um, with consumers and how we show up and present ourselves on shelves and in culture and that experience when you're cracking open a can of soda and drinking it, what that feels like. So my background actually started off in strategy and advertising, working at agencies when social media was just becoming a thing. My first Instagram post was actually one taken in an office with coworkers trying to say, okay, what is this platform? Let's test it out. And it was just a random post from my old boss.
So
Um,
good.
it was paid media and paid advertising on social didn't exist yet, and so I was uniquely in a position where, starting off this small agency, we were about 50 people, a digital shop. We mostly produce websites, which really allowed us to tap into the website building side of Facebook tabs, which is also a throwback for anyone who
Yep.
remembers those heydays. Yep.
I
And
remember.
so exactly, buddy media was the hot thing in town, and with that required some technical skills, and we were really lucky to have that in-house with our tech team. From there, Facebook and Instagram quickly pivoted to content and community building. And so we as a small shop also did the same. And that meant going from making microsites to suddenly filming Vines. So I filmed Vines for a Fortune 50 company because we sold it in. And we went back to the office and said, okay, who's going to make them? And I was like, okay, I guess I will make those stop motion videos. So we were doing
So cool.
copywriting. But with that, what was really interesting to me was seeing how, this new business vertical impacted the agency I worked for. How are we pricing and selling these services as an agency? So I think the business side, as much as the creative side, always resonated with me. And I've been told that at all my positions after that, subsequently, which were at small agencies and big agencies, that I have a little bit of this uh, love of numbers as much as I do for love of copywriting and graphic design. So those two pieces have always kind of played a role in my life.
Which is such a powerful combo. And I'm emphasizing this point on purpose because I know so many founders listen to this podcast. And often I hear a founder say, well, I'm just really a creative, or a founder will say, I just really love the ops. I don't really care about the creative, but you have to have both. It's cool that you have a two-in-one within your own, career, but just emphasizing the importance of you can't have one without the other.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And it doesn't mean you have to be the best. Like, I will say that one of the videos that spoke to me the most when we were starting out, I think this is, a few years ago, and it was maybe it was even an ad, and it was a guy who was saying, I'm a startup and I'm wearing this role. And then he goes, and tomorrow, and he takes off the hat and he hands it to someone else. He's like, I've hired someone else who needs to do this better than me, and I'll wear this hat. And so
Right.
I really adopted that philosophy that, just because I haven't done it in my past or I haven't been good at something, that shouldn't stop me from diving in to know something for the business, because no one's going to care as much as you do. And if anything, you'll be a better partner and can identify that skill set in someone else when you've either tried to venture into it and realized how hard it is. Now I know what to look for in someone else.
1,000%. That's why I always emphasize to founders, even in the early days of just thinking about social media, just trying it just
Yeah.
getting in there, logging in, scrolling, liking, engaging, just so that you could have an understanding of the cadence of what then you need, right? If that's just not your skill set, but at
Yeah.
least you understand the environment a bit more. So I love that you touched upon that, and also what you were describing as like the old school agency of, social media was just happening. I had that after college. It was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, social, like, will this be a thing? And so I
Yeah.
remember those really early conversations too. And so, okay, so you had that background, you were developing these skill sets of, ops, numbers, data, but also the creative copywriting, messaging to work together. And then when did United Sodas come into your orbit?
Yeah. So I was working at an agency where I had been working with, as a strategy director. I had a creative director counterpart and a new business counterpart. And the three of us were actually developing the beauty vertical at
Cool.
Virtue, which was the creative agency of Vice, RIP. And
Yes, yes, yes.
um,
Lots of throwbacks in this episode already. I love it.
a lot of throwbacks. So we were working with a lot of beauty brands. And what I loved about it is beauty was one of the first verticals that really embraced community building and social media and an authenticity to the content, lo-fi and hi-fi, as opposed to
Hmm.
just relying on, really highly produced content. And I really loved starting something new at the agency, building out this vertical, how we were pitching it, bringing in new business and the clients that we had. And so from that, I think I realized I would like to go startup side to a brand side. But, I'd heard the horror stories of people working for startups with crazy founders, and
Right.
we all know that the
We all
rumors and
know.
we all know exactly.
Maybe
So
too
actually,
well, but yeah, we all know.
yeah, it's a little bit of PTSD there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had gotten a phone call from one of my previous mentors and managers who was working on new brands with a creative agency that was just starting off. And, she kind of said, hey, I've met these other founders and I think I might be starting a soda brand and I might become CEO and would love to share the idea with you. So we had a meeting at Dembo House. She told me about the other co-founders who have launched successful business in the past. They don't have LinkedIn. They're more behind the scenes, really understand business. And she was just, Marisa Zupan, she's an amazing brand strategist, like just really, really amazing at that. And the creative team that was behind the brand was also amazing. So she walked me through this deck and we kind of looked at each other and I said, you're trying to hire me, right? Like this is what's happening. And so, yeah, she said, I'm going to try and find office space. I'm going to figure out how to get health insurance. And when I do, I'll give you the nod. I said, great, give me the nod and I'll put in my 2 weeks. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so about a month later, I put in my notice and it was the two of us along with someone else who was helping out on the ops side and the co-founders. And that's really how United Sodas was started. I'd say about 80% of the formula and 80% of the brand had been developed by that point. And when she sold me on the vision, I hadn't tried the product yet. And the whole concept was, what if soda were made today? And as a brand strategist, that is just, if you
Yep.
really sit with that question, wow, what does the product taste like? What does it look like? What new flavors are launched? And more importantly, how does the brand behave? How do we act as a company? How do we partake in culture? Because soda is an American icon and plays a role in culture. Pepsi used to sponsor the Super Bowl and they don't anymore. And you think of big soda the way you think of big sugar and big pharma, and something that can be so precious and beautiful in American culture when you think of the 50s and the simplicity of it, and then kind of turn into something that didn't represent the best parts of what it could be or live up to, I think, the standards that soda had set for itself by playing such an important role in culture. So that question alone, I was hooked. I was known for carrying around a little bodega bag of drinks normally that had a Vitamin Water Zero, a kombucha, a ginger ale, a Dr.
Yep.
Pepper. And so I was already a beverage geek and nerd at the time. And everything just really fell into place. And so I was really, really lucky to be brought in by someone who I trusted and worked well with. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there.
What did it feel like putting in that 2 week notice?
It was wild. Um, Yeah, I don't really have the words to describe it. I think everyone was like, wait, where are you going? For what? What is this? And it wasn't some famous previous founder starting their second startup. It was,
Right.
there was a lot of risk involved. And um, yeah, I think it was just something that I had to do and test for myself. And it felt like the right environment for me to flex my skill set. I'm very ADHD and I really love being able to problem solve and then acting on it without a lot of red tape. And so
Right.
this environment was really, really perfect for that with the trust that was built with the initial team. And the product and brand is just amazing. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere where the brand vision was going to be iconic so that the work we could do could also be iconic.
Absolutely. That resonates so much with me. I love getting my hands on a new brand and you could be creative and you could just execute and
Yes.
figure it out as you go and be able to, again, flex those creative muscles that in
Yeah.
other environments, it's really hard to do.
Yeah. I felt like in advertising, we were getting briefs from, really large CPG brands who are great, but had a lot of red tape. So that by the time
Right.
we got the product, oftentimes you were solving for a product that didn't quite actually fit the market and trying to retrofit and
Right.
twist the story to build a story or narrative around it. And if you have a strong brand from the beginning, that makes the marketing side a lot easier and a lot more fun and a lot
Yes.
more creative. And I loved that freedom that came with this, from the beginning.
So cool. Okay, so let's talk about the launch. So you signed on, you're like, I'm gonna take this leap of faith as you sip your United sodas. I love it. It's such a great product. Um, you said that the formulation was about 80% done. The overall strategy was about 80% done. What did that go to market strategy look like?
So we were a COVID baby. I don't know if anyone knows, but
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
We launched in May of 2020. Our original launch date was supposed to be March of 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so that did not happen. When I first started, the project that I worked on initially was the website. So our plan was to be D2C only from the beginning. Let's get traction, proof of concept, and then it slowly expand to retail. And mostly that was based on our skill sets as a team and that the retail industry is very capital intensive. And so kind of
Right.
having an arena that we could control the demand based on, how much ad spend we were doing it and our community building and marketing efforts. So yeah, we started off again initially being D2C. And I remember seeing another brand had a form on their website that had a drop down menu that said, I'm a customer, I'm a distributor, I'm a retailer, and then a message that they could fill in and submit. So I thought that was really clever. I put it on our website thinking that one day a retailer or distributor might fill out that form and submit. Within a week or two, I looked at that inbox and it was flooded with messages from distributors and retailers, Erewhon being one of them. Erewhon had
Wow.
been up on our LinkedIn and our phone calls because we were busy trying to navigate COVID from an operations perspective. And that's really how I ended up being kind of this dual head of brand as well as operations because all hands on deck were required for supply chain during COVID. It really was that
Right.
time intensive and that important. And so when we finally answered, we realized there was this opportunity, and Erewhon really helped us see that people were looking for simple pleasures and joys in grocery. They couldn't go out and get that glass of wine and sit out and hang with friends. So they were looking for that special something in the grocery store. And that's what our product was designed for. It was designed to be an experience. And to bring joy in its simple form to be shared with kids, adults, grandparents, all ages. We're caffeine free. We have low sugar. So it's very family friendly. And yeah, within, I think, a month or two of launching, we went to retail. Pretty quickly,
Wow.
yes, which was
So
a
that
huge
was a
learning curve.
shift. Yes.
Huge shift, huge shift. And it's really like operating two completely different business models.
Right.
We learned a lot of that. And I'm really happy we did. There was definitely some school fees, as one of our founders likes to put it, where you're kind of learning on your own dime. And
Right.
we recognized that when we started. and learned a lot about the cost of shipping soda across the country, which
Right.
is very expensive. And so that's really where my brain started moving towards, okay, I can do all the marketing I want, but if this business is not sustainable from an operations perspective, it's moot. And that piqued my interest and my curiosity. And that's kind of where the left side kicked in just as much as the right side, or vice versa.
That absolutely makes sense. And it also speaks to startup life, right?
Yes.
Going back to the reference of the guy wearing all the different hats, I mean,
Yep.
that's part of
Yeah,
it, but also fun. And it helps you learn and explore and flex new muscles and build new muscles. So,
completely.
what were some of those early retailers? I know that I've been seeing you all in pop-up grocer, but what were those like early adapters? You said Air One.
Yeah, Erewhon and Foxtrot were the first two. Um,
Okay.
and so they were really great. We were in there by July 4th, so very quickly.
Wow.
Yes, had to adjust a bunch of things around for that. We had also set up our own distribution warehouse in Brooklyn, hiring bartenders who are out of work um, during COVID because the 3PL partner that we had initially started off with was no longer able to fulfill their end of the agreement because of um, COVID, essentially. So we trucked all of our product from Florida up to New York, and that really
Wow.
dictated where we could open because of freight costs and logistics, and then as well as
Right.
just the manpower of also learning how to have a 3PL initially. We only did it for a few months, thank goodness. Um, so I'm trying to think of the other key retailers when we first started. Central Market was one of them.
Okay.
And that was huge for me. For people who don't know, it's kind of like the Whole Foods or Erewhon of Texas, specifically Dallas. I'm from Dallas, and my parents didn't really understand what I was doing. So when I had product at Central Market, they were like, "Oh, okay, we
They could
understand
see
now.
it.
Yes, they get it.
What
Yes."
a
So that was
cool
huge.
full circle moment because I'm sure so many people could resonate who work in our industry that their parents are like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like we
My
don't.
mom still thinks that I do email marketing. I was like, "Mom, I never really did email marketing, but thank you." Yes.
It's so funny. That is literally a running joke with my mom. I'm like, "Mom, what do I do?" And she's like, "Kel, I can't even talk about it right now." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, yeah,
I think she just started the term brand strategist. Like she understands that now, but it's always a running joke. So I absolutely
yeah.
understand. So what a cool moment to be able to have your parents go and see the product and be like, this is what I'm working on. You could hold it in your hands. It's an amazing soda. I love that for you. That's very
It
full circle.
It was amazing. And, even my parents, I told them how small the team was. And so I placed an order when we first launched on our website for my dad. And I got an email back from him saying, I didn't order this. And I replied back and I said, Dad, it's me. I'm hello at unitedsodas.com. What are you talking about? And he didn't realize that's how small the team was. And I also had friends who, said, hey, I need to change my address. Tell me who I should email. And I was like, you can just text me. Oh, I don't want to burden you with that. And I was like, no, really, text me and I will change the address on the shipping
Right.
form and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, definitely
Startup life. I do love it. It's insane at points, but it's also so satisfying.
Yes.
I know that you all just went through a new formulation, making some
Mhm.
tweaks and things like that. Can you walk us through what that process was and some things that you guys were really excited about landing on?
Yes, our whole premise is simplicity. So especially for anyone who kind of grew up in the 2000s and maybe went through the Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen era of diet, thin culture, then switching to suddenly everything has to be good for you and fix something, and you better be making yourself better with everything you put into your body.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of overwhelming thoughts, and kind of going through the grocery aisle, I left feeling a lot of guilt along with a lot of research and pressure to learn more about all these ingredients. And so what was really appealing about the idea of United Sodas is it's soda. It's simple. It tastes delicious. We have 5 ingredients and it tastes like real soda. So there's natural flavors, natural colors, whether that's vegetable juice or carrots that are adding to the color. And then sugar, citric acid, and stevia. The original formulation did have erythritol in it, which is also a organic erythritol, plant-based, but that sounds really sciencey. They did not have a brand strategist the way stevia did, is what I like to
Right.
say.
Right.
Um, And so that was always an ingredient we knew that we wanted to remove from the profile when the stevia was able to play the role that erythritol did. Erythritol adds to the mouthfeel of the product. And so we worked really hard with our flavor house on finding a premium stevia that we could allow us to take away the erythritol without impacting the true soda taste of the product. So that probably took us another year to do. And we just
Wow.
launched yeah, it was a lot of work because we've got 12 flavors and, it impacts each flavor individually and making sure that everything else is kind of balanced out with the acidity and the sweetness. And we relaunched and people didn't notice. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted people to say, this still tastes like the same great soda that we've always loved and enjoyed. And along with that, it was perfect timing for us to also shorten the name and make the packaging a little bit simpler. United Sodas of America is a mouthful. My mom still calls it United America Sodas. She gets a little confused. So that was also something for us that we've always called it United Sodas. Our customers do too. Let's make it simpler to see on shelf, read on shelf, and remember. So yeah.
It's a great name. And when I first saw it, I thought, okay, that's a long name. So I like that you shortened it, but also I felt like the colors really just spoke
Yes.
to just like the colorfulness and inclusion and like that nostalgic feel, but in a very cool minimalist vibe. And that really
Yeah.
spoke to me.
One of our key tenants actually is being powerfully minimal. So
Oh, I
you
like
hit
that.
that on the nail. Yes.
Yes.
With our packaging, it really is very simple. There's not a bunch of claims on it. It's our brand name, the flavor name, nutritional panel, ingredients, and a nod to recycle. And that's it. So the same approach that we had with the simplicity of the product itself, the liquid itself, we try to include in our marketing. People get inundated with so many messages, and you feel like at a certain point you can't trust anything that's out there. And
Right.
with a simple product, luckily the flavor does all the work for us, and the emotion of seeing the product itself that's what we wanted, that visceral emotion, so that give the mental workload a break. Give your brain a break.
Totally.
That's it.
I personally love your sodas because it's soda,
Thank
right?
you.
Like it's not
Yes,
trying to
it
be
is.
anything or doesn't have any other funky stuff in it. Like it's just like a good
It's
soda.
soda.
And so I don't drink soda all the time, but I love your sodas because it's just like really simple, clean. It tastes really good. And the flavors are, to me, feel a bit more sophisticated of
Are
like a palette that I would want and enjoy. So yeah, that it's all like checks. And I just love when I see it merchandised in store. It just looks really great too. Like the
Thank
bold
you.
colors. You're welcome. All of it. I'm like, yes, check, 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 check. This is my vibe. I would love to hear what you all are thinking about closing up the year, heading into 2025 with the new formulation. Like, what are you all thinking about for the vision of the brand?
For us, this year, I think it's really expanding where we started and what hooked me when I first met the team and the founders of saying, you could imagine being at a Soho house and seeing someone holding this soda and drinking it and enjoying it, just like you could at a concert, a bar, or at home, or at a fast casual restaurant. And so this
Right.
idea that you can play on premise as well as at home, I think really resonated, and being a part of culture and simple, joyous moments. And so for us, I think it's not only expanding the retail grocery side of things so that we can be in people's fridges at home, but also when you go to a coffee shop or a cafe or something, being able to have that elevated experience and have it with a food pairing. So
Right.
we have a direct side of the business that we are expanding, and that allows us to work with um, food properties, hotel properties that maybe we don't have full distribution that we could normally sustain, but for key partners, we are expanding in that sense. And that's been really exciting because we can just flex the brand in other creative ways that we haven't been able to in the past. So
That makes total sense. And I love that pairing. Like the food service space for you all, it's like makes total sense. If someone is starting to maybe want to take that leap of saying, okay, I got this opportunity or I've been thinking about it, and maybe is on that cusp of putting in that 2 week notice at the brand that everyone knows of, or that fancy agency, or whatever the case may be, to do a startup or to work from the ground up. What advice would you give someone?
Wow, that is a great question. I would say really think about what brings you joy in your day to day from your career and what brings you stress. And so,
Ooh, that's a good one.
startups, there's a lot of unknown. No matter how much money you have in the bank, it's never going to be enough. There's always going to be another raise around the corner. And so I think security of your position or the company or the job is always going to be an unknown, no matter what. You hear about amazing brands all the time, kind of having closures or having setbacks or difficulties. And
Right.
so the flip side of that is that you are being empowered, hopefully, with the right team and the right founders to problem solve and to give your best efforts and wear a lot of hats and explore the curiosity that you have to do the best in the best interest of the company and the brand that you're servicing. And if that brings you enough joy that you're okay with a little bit of that risk side, then I
Right.
think jump all in and do it. And, um, you know, that obviously depends on where you are in your life stage. But for me, I was at a point where getting out of agency life felt really, really hard that I was actually considering going to business school. And in my head, I thought, well, I could go into debt for business school, or I could treat this like an MBA. And if it doesn't work out in 2
Absolutely.
years, then so be it. But at least I'll have learned, and it's a stepping stone in the direction that I want to be going in. So kind of weigh those pros and cons, I think.
Great advice, great insight. And you are the second person so far, just within the last couple of weeks, had that said taking that leap was
Mhm.
essentially getting paid to get their MBA.
Yes, I
And
mean,
that resonates
truly.
so hard for me too. I did that too. I took the leap. I went into a startup. I was a partner, creative director of a restaurant. We built it from the ground up. And that essentially was my MBA. And so I love stories like that because I think it's so important to give different perspectives and different paths, that it
Yeah,
doesn't always have to look the same for everyone.
yeah.
And what a cool story, Kate, that you have. And I appreciate you so much for sharing. I could literally talk to you for hours. I find you so interesting. But I know I have to let you go. We're at time. What or where can people shop United Sodas?
So people can buy us on unitedsodas.com, or we have a store locator on our website. So you can look up your city or zip code and see if we're in any retailers by you. Our biggest markets are California, so Erewhon, of course. If you're in Texas, hit up Central Market. And if you're in New York, pop up grocer, and we're in bodegas up and down the street and some coffee shops. So yeah, I
So
would always
cool.
appreciate the support. And this has been a joy talking to you. And I will just say that your podcast is amazing, because getting that kind of tactical insight to people who are in the trenches has been
Yes.
amazing. And for me, it's been a great resource. So thank you so
Oh my
much.
gosh. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That means everything. That's literally why I wanted to start this podcast. And also, I love hearing the nuance and really like the stories of boots on the ground. What are we doing? How are we figuring this out? And so, thank you again for your time. And thank you everyone for listening. Seriously, United Sodas is really freaking good. Highly recommend. Go check them out. And I'll see you all on the next episode.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.